Let me start broad, and then we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about what you guys have going on with this big project. But tell everybody, for anyone who does not know or understand, what is the goal of Baseball Beyond Borders?
You know, I'll say this. We believe in the transformative power of play, right? And I think we understand that, you know, from our pain and our passion and the purpose that we live by, I mean, I think we all have experienced that. The pain point that EC and I experience, and I think many of us experience, is the lack of access to play. You know, our talents can only take us so far, one, because of the availability of baseball and softball within our community. And that we had to find a way to bring that back to Seattle. And ultimately, we're looking at preserving the cultural legacy, right? We talk about Negro League Baseball. We stand on the shoulders of giants and, you know, Andrew Roop Foster and others. And so we're just trying to kind of preserve that, right? And our fathers built a legacy for us, and, you know, for them to be in community. And we figured, well, why can't we be in that same community?
Both of your fathers play baseball?
Oh, yeah, they were baseball junkies. They didn't play professionally,
but they
certainly played baseball.
Played the game.
Absolutely.
It was important to them, taught it to you growing up, and it was important to you, and now trying to pass that along.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. We do talk about this, but no one seems to have fully solved the problem of just declining numbers among black people playing baseball. Certainly we see it in the major leagues, but it's not just the major leagues, right? It's more of a systemic problem.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's evident even when you go to tournaments, youth tournaments. You know, there's very few kids of color playing. Typically, when we show up to a tournament, especially the team that Bookie and I coach, our 13U team, you know, it's a all black men coaching staff. It's a majority of kids on our team. 90% of our kids are kids of color, and so you can definitely see it when you walk in and people are kind of looking and wondering, like, hey, wait a minute. So it has definitely trickled down, and it's more systemic, I think, than people realize.
Yeah. So what can Baseball Beyond Borders do to change that?
I think continue to have a presence in community. I think continue to look at this North Star as we're really creating generational well-being. And that's really about how we can continue to build the fandom of baseball and softball for all communities, but particularly for the black community. It's working very closely with our partners in the Seattle Mariners and just ensuring that everyone understands the impact that they can have. And it's serving with dignity at the same time. And I think that's something that even the shirt that I wear with Dr. Perkins, right? We cannot give people dignity. We just affirm people's dignity. And now I'm going to talk more about Reconciliation Tour, and that's the impetus behind.
Yeah, I want to hear what that is. So I watched the video. There's a really phenomenal 30-minute video on YouTube. It's incredibly professionally well done. I know the Converge Media folks had something to do with that as well. And so tell me, why is it the Reconciliation Tour? What does that mean?
So it's really about reconciling with oneself, right? I think oftentimes we come into spaces, we understand play heals, sport heals. And so this gives us an opportunity, one, to go down to the South, to understand that we're in a situation where we're privileged up north in the communities in which we live in. And when we go down to Jackson, Mississippi, one of the most impoverished communities, I think, in our country, particularly West Jackson, and that's the space that we actually go and have our presence. We reconcile not only just with the ability to understand kind of what one goes through, but also the ability to kind of bring life, not only to those that we serve, but it's bringing life to us.
So let me help everyone understand what you do. So you take a team of people from here, right? Some of the kids on your team. Is it a 13U team?
No, it's mostly our 15 to 18s.
Okay. So you take essentially high school kids who are involved with your program, some of whom I would imagine have been involved all the way up, you know, from being little all the way up to that extent. And you all head down to Jackson, to Jackson State, which is an HBCU. And what do you do once you get down there?
We run a baseball camp. So that Thursday, or at least the day we come in, we run a baseball camp at Jackson State, working with Jackson State University coaches, as well as our student athletes for youth in West Jackson. That's a 2-day camp that we experience. From there, we then actually go to Montgomery, Alabama. So what most people don't realize is that's where the reconciliation starts to happen. And that's when we go visit the Equal Justice Initiative Museum and Memorial. That is a museum that really speaks to racial terror, racial lynching that has happened in America. Brian Stevenson is the founder of the EJI. We actually had the opportunity to meet one of the longest-serving death row inmates in Alabama state history, Anthony Ray Hinton, who was wrongfully convicted for a crime he never committed, but spent 30 years on death row for that. Avid baseball fan, obviously had the opportunity to kind of have conversations with him. And I think what he taught and again, this is about reconciliation. He taught about the power of forgiveness. You know, obviously, you spend 30 years on death row. Imagine how you become, right?
I don't think
for
I can
something
imagine
you've never
that. No,
done.
right. I don't think that's something I could fathom.
Right. So being able to kind of have those conversations and recognize that, you know what, we have an opportunity to go back and change the narrative of our own communities. We have the opportunity to be empowered to speak to the injustices that we see. And so that reconciliation that I think those kids begin to embrace from Montgomery and from Jackson is now bringing back up here to Seattle.
How many times have you done this?
We're going into our third year.
This is going to be the third year. And has anybody done it twice? Have the same kids done it both years? So
Yep.
so they've sort of, how did the experience differ in year two from year one, either from your perspective or if you know from maybe one of the kids' perspectives?
I think the shock factor. The
In
shock
year
factor
one?
didn't, year one.
Yeah.
One, because
The tears?
yeah.
Yeah.
The shock factor in the sense of, one, you know about the water crisis that existed in Jackson, right?
Sure.
You see that on
Yes.
Coach Prime, right? You hear about it.
Right.
Well, we were there in the midst of the water crisis. When our kids went to a Waffle House, they were asking for water. They said, we can't get you that. What else do you want? And they're like, well, why can't I have water? Well, we have to, certain foods we couldn't prepare and eat. So that was a shock factor to know that, well, I can't take a shower. Like if I do take a shower, I have to be mindful of how it gets into my facial, that area. So all these things we didn't know about until it came to light once Prime started to bring it forth.
Yeah.
And so, that kind of was a shock factor. Then the next year, it was all about just relationship building. They were comfortable and they understood the assignment and why we were there. And so they were able to kind of give and pour into those kids that were participating in the camp.
Pretty amazing. I mean, that's just got to be an eye-opening experience. I can't imagine being 16 years old and realizing that that's happening in our own country. Right. I mean, that feels like you're describing something in the third world, and for that to be happening here in one of the lower 48 is really hard to fathom.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the saddest part about it, and it's something that we're kind of learning, right? These kids are walking through the memorial site in Montgomery, and we're looking at these memorial stones of those folks that have been lynched across America. And then we highlight the need that we've seen integration in baseball in 1947 with Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier. But then we look at this stone and we see in 1950 there was lynching still happening. Yeah. And so, how you try to reconcile with your mind to say, well, we thought we were accepted with baseball, or at least the opportunity for baseball to come in, but that there's still lynching happening.
Right. Yeah, these moments are so intense, and it's hard at times to bring yourself, because for the most part, you're living your life and you're kind of going through life and you're trying not to bring a lot of quote unquote negative energy into your life. And it's hard to think, hey, maybe I need to watch a movie about this. Maybe I need to watch Schindler's List. Maybe I need to go when I'm in Memphis to the National Civil Rights Museum or the Holocaust Museum in Washington, or I've been to Yad Vashem in Tel Aviv. It's hard. Those things are hard mentally, emotionally. You're spent afterwards. You're exhausted. It's not like lying on a beach on vacation. And yet, if you don't do it, I really do feel like you're missing such an important element of living.
Yeah, totally agree. And, it's an opportunity for our kids to, get outside of their comfort zone and what they're used to in their own communities. As you mentioned, being 15 to 18 years old and witnessing and seeing that sort of deal, especially at the Museum to Equal Justice Initiative. It's hard not to get emotional when you walk around and you see the tombstones, and then you also see or hear or read the reasons why someone might have been lynched. Or, I mean, it's pretty heavy. And
I would imagine.
So yeah, it's definitely an eye opener for the kids, and it exposes them in a way that they elsewhere.
We're talking to Bookie Gates and to E.C. Parker here at Baseball Beyond Borders for just a couple more minutes. In watching the video, there was one or a couple quotes that jumped out to me, but the one that I think I loved was a kid saying, "This is my second family." I just that really jumped out to me. This feels like my second family. When you hear a kid say that, what does that say to you?
I mean, that's why we did it. That's why we built the organization, right? We knew that it was kind of a home away from home. And I think that's, in a sense, how we witnessed sports growing up, right? That Garfield Playfield was our home away from home. It was a second family. It was the one place that we felt belonged, we felt valued, we felt a sense of purpose. And I think that's what we want to embody as an organization, is that we give them that belonging, we give them that value, and we give them a sense of purpose.
Did you guys grow up together? Do you know each other since forever?
Oh, yeah. His dad was my older brother's
course.
little league coach.
Of
So
course.
I've known him for over 40 years.
Oh, my gosh.
And
now you work together every day?
yes,
Is that
pretty
okay?
much. Yeah, sometimes. it depends. Sometimes it's okay. But when he comes in fashionably late through the back door,
of course,
it does something to his ego. But I would like to piggyback on his point, in that we always like to say we're not building in community, we're building with community, and that's a big point for us, because at the end of the day, relationships do matter, and life is a collaborative effort. And so anytime that we can get our kids to understand that building a relationship and getting outside of your comfort zone and building with people that you didn't necessarily know before at that time is a big deal. And those are skills that are obviously translatable.
Tell me a little bit more, just in the last few minutes. When we met a couple weeks ago, you were, EC, telling me about what you ask of the kids and then what you need of the community and how the program works. Can you, because that was really jumped out to me. Can you help kind of explain that to our listeners as well?
Yeah, well, we just ask our kids to be dedicated and committed. Obviously, and I was explaining to Kyle, but obviously, if all we're teaching kids to do is be better baseball players, we failed them. And the same with community and with families. And it's not just about baseball. For us, we want to expose kids to the business of sports as well. And, when we grew up, it was like, if you're not between the lines, there's no way to make a living in sports, period. And so just having access to that, and even things like this, like your platform. But we just ask for families to be committed, marry your talents with your passions, and be a part of it. Obviously, playing select and baseball is an expensive endeavor these days. It's unbelievably expensive. And so we like to make sure finance is not a burden for families to be able to participate. Obviously, we want them to have some skin in the game. So put up what you can, and then we'll work the rest out. So it's just really about commitment, being open, and understanding that it's bigger than the game of baseball. Obviously, we want to play baseball. Our model is, if they're keeping score, we might as well win. So we're definitely trying to win baseball games and enjoy competition.
Darn right.
But at the same time, it's really a bigger picture in us about building kids up, the whole human being.
What do you guys need? What I mean, if someone is listening now and says, "Man, I didn't know about this. This is a fantastic program, Baseball Beyond Borders. I love it. I want to hear more about it. I want to help." What would you like people to do?
I mean, you can always say resources are plentiful, right? I mean, we need financial support, and that's really about how we keep kids playing the game of baseball. It has nothing to do with the organizational structure, but obviously we do have a foundation we have to establish and build upon. I think, your talent, right? Bring your talent to.
You need volunteers?
Absolutely, we need volunteers. We have an all-star tournament coming up, y'all. Let me say, last year Seattle hosted an all-star game.
Yes,
we did. But now we have the future of the all-stars that are on display July 19th through the 21st. It'll be in South King County. That is the Nike RBI West Regional Tournament. Champions from that event move on to Vero Beach, Florida for the Nike RBI World Series. So you imagine, we still have an all-star weekend coming up here in Seattle for a second year in a row. So hopefully we can use your talents to come out and be a part of that. Obviously, if you want to sponsor, we can do sponsorships, but just be present for community. I mean, that's the one thing we can ask, right? Sometimes people just don't have the financial means to give, but you have the wisdom, you have the knowledge, you have the skills to bring forth and to help really improve this community.
Baseballbeyond.org is the website, baseballbeyond.org. If you guys want to get involved, if you want to volunteer, if you want to give some money, some resources, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of really cool stuff there. What they're doing with the Reconciliation Tour is awesome. What they're doing here in this community is amazing.
Can I ask if there's anything on the calendar coming up again this year? And is there anything to circle besides those dates that you guys got happening, or events or fundraising efforts or anything like that?
Good question.
So that's a good question. So we do have the regional tournament that's happening. We have the Reconciliation Tour. Reconciliation Tour is in June, so it is coming up. And the reason why it's in June, because it's too damn hot in Jackson in July.
It looked pretty hot in that video.
We learned that.
You
Absolutely.
guys are sweating.
Yeah. You see that. But we also have a wonderful opportunity here in August that we're working with the Seattle Mariners to really highlight and showcase Black ball players here in our state and within our Northwest market. That's I'm giving you kind of a tease.
Yeah.
So that's forthcoming with our high school student athletes to get them the exposure that they need, hopefully to HBCUs and others.
Pretty cool.
Across our region. And then we're looking at doing a rooftop fundraiser that'll happen kind of kicking off right around July, right before our regional tournament. So we haven't solidified the date, but that's where we can get the community involved. That's where we really open up the doors for everyone.
I got some text coming in. 206 says, thanks for introducing us to what sounds like an amazing organization. Another 206 says, I'm donating right now. We got a bunch of those texts coming in. So, baseballbeyond.org. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
There you go. That's Bookie and EC, and that's Baseball Beyond Borders.